doing some things in the Smokies. They formed Tennessee Citizens for Wilderness Planning in 1966. And one of the first things they did was look through the cost-benefit analysis that TVA had done to justify putting a dam on this river. And they were able to show that the benefits that they were proposing were not nearly what they said they were. And they presented that to TVA. TVA said, yeah, you're right. Cost benefit's not what we thought it was. They kind of backed off. There was a local congressman who, though, was still trying to push it. They'd gotten a lot of support from people in Morgan County, most of whom had never been to this river, and they just thought, oh, it'd be cool to have a reservoir here. And so that local congressman, he didn't want to back off, but then they redrew his district, and it included people in Oak Ridge who were against it, kind of, and so he finally backed off. So you might have thought, well, that solves it. We don't have to worry about this becoming a reservoir anymore. But fortunately, the people, Lee and Bill Russell and their friends, realized that wasn't the case. This is probably going to take some kind of legislation to protect this. And so they joined forces with a brand new group out of Nashville called Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association. And those folks, along with the local, or one of the state legislators, wrote up an act for the state of Tennessee's Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And it had like 25 or so rivers listed on it that were going to be designated. They kind of, worked that process through the legislature. Eventually, it passed. But before it passed, some of the Morgan County folks, I suppose is who it was, or some local legislators anyway, said, we're going to slip OBED out of there. So the OBED was not included in that first state Wild and Scenic Rivers Act in 1968. Fortunately, a few months later, the U.S. Congress passed the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, and that included like 8 or 10 of the biggest rivers in the country, the Grand Canyon and places like that. And then they had another list of about 28 rivers that were to be studied, and one of those included the Obed River. And another one included the Duck River, which is the only two in Tennessee at the time. So TCWP folks and their friends went to work then trying to provide information for this study. The study said, yes, we should protect 100 miles that includes Obed River, Clear Creek, Daddy's Creek, and they were making some good headway, but this has taken several more years, and then at one point they were still, even though they did the study and it showed, yes, this is probably going to work, they still needed to have some member of Congress to support this. They had to have somebody push it through legislation in Washington. And they found a candidate that was running for U.S. Congress in the area, and they convinced him that this should be in his platform. And he said, yeah, I agree. And so he supported it. He got elected. And then between the time he got elected and the time the session opened in January, he died in a plane crash. So once again, it's kind of back on now, is this ever going to end? Well, fortunately, the governor appointed his wife, Marilyn Lloyd, to be the representative for that district in Tennessee. She agreed to follow through with his wishes and support this. And so that's how and then in the meantime, there's some well-off people in Cumberland County, well-connected people that had property on Daddy's Creek, Upper Daddy's, and they said, well, we don't want you to include this because then we won't be able to have fun here. So that part of Daddy's got shortened from several miles to just a couple. So now we're down to about 80 miles. Everybody decided 80 miles is better than none. And so that's what then eventually passed. And so that was the beginning of TCWP and one of the first projects that they tackled. And that was to get the Obed Wild and Scenic River designation. And if you've been to Wartburg, that's where the park headquarters are now. It's managed by the National Park Service. It's one of my favorite places to go kayaking. But the reason I tell that whole story is to say this is kind of the heart and soul of TCWP. And not only TCWP, but all these other organizations that are here tonight recognize that the kind of people that we need to survive and that we need to keep doing the things that we do are the same ones that were represented TCWP back then. They need to be passionate about what they believe in. They need to be persistent, They need to have lots of patience because all these activities just often take much longer than you might think they should. And the other thing is you need to have some kind of connectivity or collaborators. Other organizations, members of the local governments, members of state governments, and things like that. So all those things are important to us. I'm going to real quickly try to tell you a little bit about what we do today, what TCWP does now. I'm the board president, Mark Bettelheimer. Nancy Manning is out here. She'll be at the table in a little bit. She's our executive director. There's been a lot happen in the last 50 years that TCWP has done in East Tennessee. I'm going to try to just skip all the way to the present so you have some idea of what we're doing now, and we hope that you'll maybe want to get involved in some of the things we do. We can sort of divide everything that we do into protection and advocacy, stewardship, and education, and I'll kind of step through each of those quickly here. So as far as protection goes, I will emphasize we're interested in protecting wild places so that people can enjoy them. We don't necessarily believe in just setting things aside that nobody can use. We think people should be able to get out and hike and boat and explore places. So most of our protection is about trying to protect things so that people can enjoy those wild places. One of the activities that we have going on now that's one of these persistence things is for the last 5 years or so, we've been trying to coordinate efforts to create a 41-mile rail-to-trail that runs from northeast Anderson County all the way up through Campbell County and all the way to Oneida. And it's a real challenge. You would think that's something everybody would want. That's not necessarily the case. So if you have any friends or people of power in Campbell and Anderson and Scott County, please let us know. But that's one thing. We've been involved with several other organizations promoting the Pellissippi Blue Way, which is kind of basically from Clinton all the way down to Clinch River to Mountain Hill Dam. We're looking at trying to improve access areas for non-motorized boats for the most part, and we've been promoting activities there. There's a gas pipeline that's being proposed by TVA that will be built probably from Middle Tennessee all the way to Kingston. Our biggest concern is that it crosses it's very close to a lot of Obed River tributaries, and we're kind of getting geared up to trying to do some citizen science work there to try to monitor some of the activities with the construction of that pipeline as it crosses some of these tributaries. So if you're interested in that kind of work, Nancy has the sign-up sheet. As far as education goes, we do a lot of wildflower hikes, and we've got some of the best botanists in East Tennessee on our board, and they love to take people for hikes and show off their skills at identifying wildflowers. So always look for those in the springtime. We host and co-host sponsored talks from various scientists and naturalists in the area. And then this past year, 2 years, we've started a program with the Oak Ridge Middle Schools called Explore and Restore. And we've worked with the kids 1 day a week for 4 weeks through one of the science classes and get them to work at wetlands areas that are near the schools and actually do some invasive plant removal, and they also do some testing of the soil and the critters in the wetlands and the plants. And that's been a lot of fun, and it's been going real well. Stewardship is something we do a lot of. Trail maintenance, we've got some property that we still own ourselves that have trails on them. There's some wild areas that we manage. And then we also support a lot of 2 or 3 river cleanups, kind of, sometimes from shores, sometimes from boats. Advocacy was the other area. We have a really nice newsletter. We've got several copies up here, pick them up. But one of the things that's been constant in this newsletter for 50 years, I think, has been sort of a call to action. And so we try to highlight all the things that are happening in the state and in the region that might be of value to you to make a phone call or to write a congressperson. It's all of us are frustrated and trying to figure out what can I do, and we should never underestimate, I guess, maybe a single voice does make a difference, and so we try to point some of those out. We are starting within our organization an advocacy team so that we can sort of keep up with those things a little better, and so that we can present ourselves to the state legislators more effectively and try to encourage them to see things the way that we do. Let's see. A couple other activities. Nancy does have some clipboards up here that, in addition to the citizen scientist team that we're trying to get for Morgan County, if anybody's got grant writing experience, we're always interested in that. And same thing with advocacy. If anybody wants to learn more about advocacy. Lastly, is if you don't feel comfortable getting out and doing those real active things, just become a member of us or one of these organizations and support us with your membership, and join us for a hike and get outdoors with us. So thank you very much for your time and patience.